Welcome back to the Alice Stewart Show on 96.5 The Voice.
Say you want a revolution.
Welcome back to the second hour of the Alice Stewart Show, 7:06 here on a nice Thursday morning in Central Arkansas. We are keeping a close eye on the developing situation with ISIS, the Islamic State, and the terror they are raining on the world. And the latest news is that President Barack Obama and British Prime Minister David Cameron are planning to work on a multinational coalition to carry out military action against ISIS. And here to get some response to what is going on with regard to ISIS and the latest developments, we're joined with Congressman Tom Cotton. He is a Republican candidate for U.S. Senate against Democrat Senator Mark Pryor. Congressman Cotton, good morning.
Morning, Alice. It's great to be on with you, as always.
I appreciate your time. I know you're super busy, but I appreciate your time. I want to get your thoughts, first off, to what's going on with ISIS and this latest development. You were an Army Ranger. You served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and you fought for freedoms in that region. Your thoughts on how this has developed and really spiraled to a situation that many of you didn't have to get to this point, but you have a unique perspective in that you have served in the region. Your thoughts on where we are today?
Alice, of course, we didn't have to reach the point today where the Islamic State has established an essential al-Qaeda stand across broad swaths of Iraq and Syria. I fought against the Islamic State's precursor, al-Qaeda in Iraq. And the president's own CIA deputy director said al-Qaeda in Iraq was defeated in 2011 thanks to the bravery and the skill of our troops. But because the president wants to do nothing more than just withdraw from the entire world and hunker down in the United States, he allowed those radical terrorist remnants to regroup in Syria, where there was utter chaos, and then begin to build up their arsenal. Earlier this year, he referred to them as the JV team, even though we now know that he was receiving warnings from the military as far back as a year ago. And even after they had conquered much of Iraq and Syria, after they had beheaded an American citizen, crucified Christians, and buried kids alive, the president last week said, we don't have a strategy to deal with them. It's just another instance of the president's utter failure to protect America and Americans and American interests abroad. And another interest when Mark Pryor has once again stood loyally by the president.
And with regard to that, the fact that we had last week the president saying we have no strategy in this region, and we had not one but two, as you referred to, American journalists who were beheaded. Now the president has decided to take action. I want to play a quick soundbite from the president who is commenting on this now, and his view and his notion that he has been leading on this issue, and get your response. Here's President Obama.
The United States will continue to lead a regional and international effort against the kind of barbaric and ultimately empty vision that ISIL represents. And that's going to take some time, but we're going to get it done. I'm very confident of it. Congressman,
is this too little, too late?
It's way too little and way too late. Again, we didn't have to reach this point. We reached this point because of the president's failure and because liberal politicians like Mark Pryor stood silently by. All of the flowery rhetoric, all the tough talk in the world doesn't matter unless you're willing to take action. Again, our brave troops had defeated the Islamic State's precursor by 2011. Yet now that same CIA deputy director says they could strike the United States as early as next week. And the president continues to send mixed signals, both to our enemies and to our allies. Yesterday, he came out and in prepared remarks said that we are going to destroy the Islamic State. And then when he gets to the very first question, he starts backpedaling, saying, well, it's a manageable problem that we might be able to solve with our allies. Then they have to send Chuck Hagel, the Secretary of Defense, out to say, no, we're going to destroy the Islamic State, not contain it. This is an administration that is adrift, has no clue what its strategy is, and has no plan to protect Americans from the most dangerous terrorist army that we have seen in modern times.
And what kind of message, Congressman, does this say to those who did have sons and daughters and husbands and wives that served in this war and lost their lives and paid the ultimate sacrifice for freedoms and liberties. What kind of message does that say to them when the president says Al-Qaeda's on its heels? We have won in the war on terror, and now it is we're right back virtually nearing square one again.
Well, it's infuriating for all those Americans who fought and bled, and for some who died and their families, against Al-Qaeda in Iraq for so many years, or against other Al-Qaeda offshoots around the world, that the president has been saying for years that Al-Qaeda is largely defeated and that they're on the run and that we're bringing a war to an end. Wars do not end. Wars are won or lost. And because this president is not committed to a winning strategy, I'm afraid that America is on the verge of losing this war, losing to the Islamic State, which is attracting more and more Islamic radicals from around the world, to include Western Europe, to include the United States, people who could easily travel here to strike us, people who could easily cross our southern border to strike anywhere in the United States, as the president's own CIA deputy director has said. There's just an utter lack of seriousness, there's no strategy, and it's going to cost American lives, as it already has.
And your thoughts also, you're running against Senator Mark Pryor. He's been relatively quiet on this issue.
Yes, he has stood with the president over the last 6 years as the president has seen a decline in America's influence abroad. He supported the president's radical military cuts, over $1 trillion of cuts, and he himself has articulated no plan or no vision for what we should do, or cautioned against the president's failures last year or years before, when this was utterly predictable. Again, last year the military was warning the president that the Islamic State was regrouping and was gaining in strength. Members of Congress knew that. Where was Mark Pryor? He was silent, once again standing loyally by the president, who has no strategy and no plan to keep America safe.
All right. I want to ask you one other question on a different issue on the campaign. You running against Senator Mark Pryor, and the ad wars are really heating up. And I want to ask you about this. It's gotten a lot of national attention. The Pryor campaign put out an ad stating that you voted against certain funding for medical disaster and emergency programs, and alleging that this vote, you yourself helped spread the Ebola virus. And it's gotten a lot of attention nationally. MSNBC, Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski, they refer to this as a Saturday Night Live ad. Steve Barnes here in Arkansas says that the Pryor campaign lost a little mo. Some say it's just really off the mark. Your response to this ad and the idea?
Well, the attention it's received, both in Arkansas and around the country, is widespread ridicule, which is what it deserves. It's correct to say this looks like a Saturday Night Live parody skit, and when your opponent is attacking you for being soft on Ebola before Labor Day, you know that something must be going right in your campaign. This is just another instance of Mark Pryor saying anything in a desperate bid to cling to power after decades in power, and refusing to defend his own record of being a loyal supporter of the Obama agenda 93% of the time he cast a vote in the United States Senate, whether it's for Obamacare, whether it's for amnesty for illegals, or whether it's for $7 trillion in new debt that we're burdening our children with. Mark Pryor would rather run on false attacks like I'm soft on Ebola rather than try to defend his record. But you know what? Most people would rather do that than defend the record that Mark Pryor has of being a loyal foot soldier for Barack Obama's agenda.
And one last question. We've got about 60 days left for the campaign. The latest poll numbers show you in the Real Clear Politics average leading by 1.7 percentage points. It's a tight lead, statistical dead heat. Your thoughts moving forward? What's the plan?
Alice, I don't really worry about polls. The one number that I know Arkansans are worried about, though, is 93%. The amount of time that Mark Pryor votes for Barack Obama. And that's why in 61 days, Arkansans are ready to retire Pryor. They want a senator who will reflect Arkansas's common sense, conservative views and values in the United States Senate, someone who will be a brake on the Obama agenda, not someone like Mark Pryor who will be a loyal advocate and supporter of the Obama agenda.
All right, Congressman Tom Cotton, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, have a great day. We will take a break, and when we come back, another issue on the ballot coming up, dealing with statewide alcohol sales. We will speak with the head of that initiative coming up after the break here on the Alice Stewart Show.
The Alice Stewart Show on 96.5 The Voice.
Only know you've been hard.